Hey everyone, I'm Wirt, and this is Wertful. Welcome to my first video, and because it's my first one, I want to talk about Billy Joel. More specifically, I want to talk about his first album, how misunderstood it is, and why Billy doesn't really care for it at all. Before we start there, let's start near the beginning. Before he was a top hit powerhouse of the 70s and 80s, Billy Joel got his start in the late 60s playing in a psych rock band called the Hassles. After the band dissolved, Billy and his former Hassles drummer John Small formed the little-known band Attila in 1970. This was a hard rock duo with Billy Joel on Hammond organ, which was fed through a guitar amplifier, and John Small on drums. The album flopped at the record stores, and Billy found himself spiraling into depressive episodes. Unfortunately, this landed him in the hospital. All he could do now was pick up the pieces and start again. By 1971, Billy found himself writing songs again. He wrote a litany of singer-songwriter rock songs under the assumption that other people would sing them. Billy eventually landed on singing them himself, as a helpful bolster to grab attention to his natural songwriting chops. He recorded and mastered the album outside of New York City, near where he grew up, in Hempstead, New York. The album was made under the production of a record label owner named Artie Ripp, a name infamously attached to Billy Joel's career. Billy's repertoire around this time saw the progeny of several songs that would come to define his sound into the 70s. The album itself, Cold Spring Harbor, has two distinctly popular tunes, Everybody Loves You Now and She's Got Away, songs that Billy still performs in his shows to this day. And for most fans, they may have heard these performed on Billy's first live album, Songs in the Attic, which was released in 1980. It's an interesting live LP to release as it had no popular singles or hits on it, like Piano Man or My Life. The live LP is full of deep cuts from his previous projects. The album Cold Spring Harbor was produced under Family Productions, and they didn't press many copies of the album back in 1971. Not to mention, the album pressing was plagued with quite a few issues. It notoriously was pressed at the wrong speed on side A, which speeds up the music. Billy himself has described this LP as the Chipmunk album. He only saw this album as a vehicle to sell his other songs to musicians and singers to use in their performances, as he wanted to initially just be a writer, not a performer. Yet despite all these problems plaguing the album, it still stands as one of my favorite albums of all time. Track 1 of side A starts off with a Billy Joel concert classic, She's Got Away. This song was a staple in his live show repertoire since he essentially started touring as a solo outfit. The opening chords get the listener into the mood of the album, which can be very difficult to pinpoint. What I do love about this album is its ability to change the mood on the fly. We start off, of course, with She's Got Away, a song that only features vocals and piano. This song immerses the listener into an intimate environment. It feels very cold, frigid, endearing, and eerie all at once. Track 2 of side A kicks it up. You Can Make Me Free hits the listeners with a high energy rock song. Okay, this is where I should also note there are technically two versions of this album. The original 1971 mix was released on vinyl and 8-track back at the time of its release. However, in 1983, after Billy Joel enjoyed several years of popularity, his label, Columbia Records, re-released the album with a new mix, with its speed corrected. According to Billy himself, the master tapes for the original 1971 mix have been lost, most likely by his old label, Family Productions, the label the album originally released on. Some aspects of the 1983 release have newly dubbed drums and synthesizer effects which extremely date the album in my opinion. One of the largest changes was made on this track. Near the end of the song on the original release, the song transitions into a 3-minute rock jam track, with Billy on keyboards accompanied by a studio band. On the updated mix, deleted, permanently erased. The song fades right where the jam begins on the new mix, and listeners are abruptly greeted with silence, right as the song seems to pick up energy. Why was this choice made? No clue. Moving on, track 3 on side A, Everybody Loves You Now, is the other concert favorite on this LP. It's the prototypical Billy Joel hit, the blueprint. Contained in it is the recipe for steady radio play of songs yet to be made, and it's a personal favorite of mine. Side A from here on out becomes more sentimental, with two tracks, Why Judy Why and Falling of the Rain, two distinctly un-Billy Joel-like in nature. If we take a look at the album art for this LP, the black and white photograph of a young and solemn-looking Billy Joel matches the mood of the album succinctly, although not uncommon at the time for moody singer-songwriter artists. I'd even go as far as to call this cover emo. Flipping the album cover over reveals an even more gaudy photograph featuring Billy at the piano, his appearance silhouetted by the light coming from a window to his left. Also illuminated are several liquor bottles. It creates such a harsh environment and tone. It's cold, devoid of any color, feels so chilly. It's like the type of weather I associate with this album in particular, for those absolutely devastating January days. Track 1, Side B, starts off optimistic. Turn Around is a country westernish inspired tune that sounds more like material that would be present on Billy's second solo album, Piano Man. The 1983 version plasters the track with overproduced drumming and cheesy milquetoast synthesizers, whereas the original mix maintains the folk rocky ballad that is more in tune with the 1971 production, instead of its future counterpart, with its overproduced plastic sound. An issue that I think mires the 1983 mix way too much. Unfortunately, that mix is the only way to hear Cold Spring Harbor officially. I believe this is doing the album a disservice. Track 2, Side B, You Look So Good to Me, the oddest song on the LP. Billy now playing a Hammond organ, subdued this time, unlike on Attila. He plays a happy-go-lucky tune about new romance. It sounds particularly dated in terms of 70s rock. But this track is interesting in particular, as I'm pretty sure this is the first time we hear a harmonica in the Billy Joel catalog of music. You only gotta listen to his next album in 1973 to know why that's significant. It's a song you may have already heard before. Changing gears, track 3, 4, and 5 on Side B might be one of my most favorite 3-song runs on any album. Tomorrow's Today, Nocturne, and finally, Got to Begin Again. Tomorrow's Today features some of the most impassioned lyrics from Billy Joel, as he sings about life and what he believes the value of his own life is worth. The lyrics are based allegedly upon a note he wrote to his friends when he was at his most depressive. Accompany this with a full orchestra, strings and brass. The song itself is impressive in relation to everything we heard before. Then, in the 1983 mix, the orchestra is removed. Gone. The track turns into a 100% solo song with Billy at his piano. And you know what? It's pretty darn good. I have to say the addition of the orchestra completely surprised me when I first heard it. I had not actually heard the original 1971 mix until I reached college. Up until then as a kid, I had only heard the remix. I can recall showing this song to some of my college roommates at the time, and they were floored by this track. It's very powerful. Both versions are, but Billy shines so brightly on the solo version. Track 4, Side B, Nocturne. It's an instrumental piano tune, which I recently found out does have lyrics. You can find a collection of demos from around the time frame online. One of these songs on the demos includes Nocturne as an early mix with lyrics. It features songs that didn't make the cut into the LP like Long Long Time, Only a Man, and even Captain Jack. I often wonder if the inclusion of Captain Jack on Cold Spring Harbor would have helped or hindered its performance at the record stores, since Captain Jack turned out to be one of Billy Joel's greatest performing hits of all time. Track 5 of Side B, Got to Begin Again, is the closer of the album and ends the LP on a note of hope. Billy is now looking towards the future and looks into where life could lead him. Quoting the lyrics, he just can't decide where to go. It is cautiously optimistic in both lyrics and music, and I believe it's the perfect counterpoint from the last two tracks. Billy ends his album asking the listener where he could possibly go with his new life. He has to begin again but does not know where to start. A truly heartwarming ending to an otherwise devastatingly emotional album. I often return to this album more than others in Billy Joel's catalog of music. Not to say that I dislike any of it, far from it. I do find myself back at Cold Spring Harbor whenever I feel the mood is right. It's a comfort album to me. It's something I can return to and feel cozy and comfortable. I often wonder why I do. It was Billy Joel's first solo project after all, and even Billy dislikes the album and the history surrounding it. And yet, I keep returning to his first effort. The LP that held no hits and was produced with a defect right into it. Ultimately, that's what I find the most interesting of all. The muffled, distorted quality of the recording gives it a certain warmth. It gives it a specific texture to the music. Earlier in this video, I previously mentioned the name Artie Ripp, the producer behind this album. Listening to interviews and reading articles from Billy around this time, it was clear from the start that this deal that was struck for the album was, for lack of a better term, crappy. Billy figured the only way he could escape his lousy deal with family was to escape, out to the West Coast to be more precise. There he settled down in LA and made his living working at a bar as the piano player. It was his time working as a live entertainer when he began to get the inspirations to the lyrics behind what would arguably be his greatest song, Piano Man. Cold Spring Harbor, and the time period surrounding it, was a shot in the dark for Billy, a chance for him to gain his footing as a legit musician. And in a way, he succeeded. But if it wasn't for one sleazy record producer, and one badly mastered solo album, he may have not have seen the success and notoriety that he does today. He doesn't like the album, but I do.
Hey, this is Word again. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of this video. I'm glad you enjoyed it. This is my first video on my new channel, so it would mean the absolute world to me if you smashed that subscribe button, or if you at least gave it a like if you enjoyed it, especially if you want to see more videos like this in the future. You can expect big things from Wertful this year. I'll see you around. Ciao.